The story begins in a city in South Korea, where we see a man named Ethan. Ethan was traveling somewhere with his son Jack. They were loading things into a truck. From their conversation, we learn that they were leaving their city and moving to another one, because their family's financial situation was really bad. Ethan had taken so many loans and debts from people that he was completely drowned in it. Now, he had no option left except to leave the city and run away, because he didn't have the ability to repay that debt anymore. After traveling a long distance, the father and son finally reached their new city. They started unloading their things into their new house. Here, we find out that Jack also has a mother and a sister, but they live with his grandmother because his mother has been sick for many years, and the grandmother is the one who takes care of her. Meanwhile, Jack lives with his father so he can continue his studies. That same day, while they were eating dinner in their new house, they talked about how they were going to start their new life and how they would manage everything. In the evening, Jack was walking around his new street when suddenly his eyes fell on a chubby boy who was acting very strangely. He kept staring at Jack in a weird way for a long time. Jack couldn't really understand what was happening. After a while, that boy left, but Jack kept watching him walk away, thinking about how odd his behavior was. A few days passed. Jack had now enrolled in a new school in this city. It was his first day, so he got ready and went to school. But the other boys in school were looking at him strangely, probably because Jack looked a bit innocent and naive. When he reached his classroom, a group of boys was walking from the opposite direction. These boys were actually members of a dangerous school gang called the Zeus Gang. The leader of this gang was Franklin, who was a senior at the school, and almost everyone in the school was afraid of him. In fact, the rules of the school basically ran according to his wishes. Here, Jack meets his classmate Emma, who points at the gang and says, "Look, that's the most dangerous gang in our school." She explains that there are two main gangs here, the Zeus Gang and the Badai Gang, both of which are really dangerous. Emma warns him to stay away from them, or he'll get caught up in their mess. But Jack didn't pay much attention to her warning. His focus was only on his studies. After class started, their teacher came in. Jack was a bit surprised because she looked pretty funny. Her style was kind of military-like. But she introduced herself as Ms. Park, their new teacher, and began teaching. Sitting in the back, Emma whispered to Jack, "You might feel like laughing at her appearance, but she's not an ordinary teacher. She's really talented, and the principal personally hired her for this school." Then one of the boys in their class called out to Jack. Jack went up to him and said, "Uncle, did you call me?" The boy got angry because he wasn't actually an uncle. He was just an older-looking classmate. He looked a bit mature for his age. That's when Jack realized this was the same chubby boy he saw on the street earlier. His name was Mike, and he was one of the strongest students in the school. Mike told Jack that they were actually neighbors, so he wanted to be friends with him. He shook Jack's hand and said, Mike shook Jack's hand and said, "If you ever need anything, just tell me." That day, when Victor was standing near the classroom window, a senior student from the upper floor started mocking him and tried to insult him in front of everyone. Victor didn't like that at all and warned him to stay quiet. A little while later, that same senior, whose name was Abling, came downstairs with his group to pick a fight with Victor. Abling started threatening him, but before things could go further, Mike, who had been dozing off at his desk, suddenly woke up and said, "If you touch my friend, you'll regret it." Abling then tried to mess with Mike too, but before the fight could break out, Miss Park arrived and stepped in between them. She scolded Abling and his team harshly and threw them out of the class. After that incident, Jack, Mike, and Victor started laughing together while having lunch, making fun of Abling and his gang. Soon, the three of them became very close friends. One day, Mike said that from now on they should form their own gang, and he even came up with a name for it, the Reunion Gang. Apart from them, a few more friends would also join. Just then, a boy named Hyunjun came running to them and said that the Zeus Gang had made a big announcement for everyone in the school. The announcement was that there would be a wrestling tournament, and all first-year students could take part in it. Whoever won this tournament would get the chance to become a member of the Zeus Gang. Hearing this, everyone became super excited. Slowly, all the students started gathering in the school ground. Everyone secretly wished to be part of the Zeus gang because that gang had the most power and everyone feared them. Being in the Zeus gang meant having authority and influence, something everyone wanted. Jack and his friends also went there just to see the excitement. Students were practically competing with each other to sign up for the tournament. Many of them had already started practicing wrestling moves. However, neither Mike nor any member of their reunion gang wanted to join the Zeus gang. They knew that the Zeus gang members were not just strong. They were also bullies who misused their power, so Jack and his friends decided to stay away from it and went back to their class. Later in class, Jack was seen practicing some fighting moves. He had started realizing that the entire school was actually under the control of gangsters. If he didn't learn to defend himself, it would be very hard to survive there. Jack looked at Victor and said, "You're a really good fighter. Can you teach me how to fight so I can protect myself too?" Victor agreed and began teaching Jack different fighting techniques. He told him that fighting is a skill. The more you practice it, the stronger you become. Even though it was difficult, Jack kept practicing regularly. The next morning, Jack was walking to school with Mike and they were talking along the way. Mike told him that he used to be a great fighter. In fact, all the school gangsters were once afraid of him. But one day, he suddenly gave up fighting. He swore that he'd never do anything wrong again. When the gangs found out about it, they started targeting him and often tried to pick fights with him. A little further ahead, Jack and Mike saw some boys bullying a student and taking money from his bag. Jack and Mike got angry. But since Mike had promised never to fight again, he couldn't do anything. So Jack used his new fighting skills to scare those bullies away. However, a few members of the Zeus gang saw this and immediately reported it to their leader, telling him that Jack and Mike had interfered in their work. When Jack and Mike returned to their classroom, they found a few boys waiting for them. One of them was Baldman, a member of the Zeus gang. Baldman came forward and said, "You've got a lot of courage, huh? Interfering in our business?" Then he looked at Mike and said, "You swore off fighting. So why are you getting involved in our matters again?" Mike refused to fight, but Baldman threatened that if they ever interfered again, he wouldn't let them go easily. Just then, Franklin, the leader of the Zeus gang, arrived. He slapped Baldman and said, "Did you forget that Mike used to be one of us?" Then he turned to Mike and said, "I heard you're not taking part in the tournament, but I want you to join it, because I know you'll win, and our team will become even stronger." Mike firmly refused and said, "I'm never joining a gang again. I've quit fighting, and now I just want to finish my studies and get out of here." Franklin got angry and said, "You've got quite an attitude since you quit fighting. Just wait. One day, you'll have no choice but to join my team." Then he walked away with his gang. Jack looked at Mike and said, "They threatened you, but they didn't even touch you." Mike replied, "That's because they know my fighting skills." After school, Jack went to Mike's house because he wanted to learn more about his fighting skills. When he got there, he saw Mike eating 50 boiled eggs at once. And that's when Jack realized why Mike was so strong. Jack asked him, "Why did Franklin say you used to be one of them?" Mike explained that he used to be a gangster too, always fighting and causing trouble. But later, he realized his mistakes and decided to take the right path. Franklin wanted him to break his promise and return to the fighting scene so that their gang could become even stronger. The next day at school, Mike got the shocking news that the Zeus gang had captured his younger brother and taken him to the basketball court. He immediately rushed there with his friends and saw that Franklin and his men were bullying his brother. Franklin said, "Since Mike refused to fight me, now his little brother will fight Baldman instead. And if he doesn't fight, we'll call him a coward." Mike's brother, full of anger, accepted the challenge. Before the fight started, Baldman laughed and said, "Better arrange a coffin. Your brother's not walking away from this." Mike was furious, but he kept himself under control. During the fight, Mike's brother tried hard and held his ground well, but Baldman was cunning. Eventually, he trapped Mike's brother by locking his leg around his neck and started beating him badly. Then he mocked Mike, saying that he and his brother weren't alike at all. Mike's anger reached its peak, but he restrained himself, knowing that this was just a trap to make him fight again. Finally, the Zeus gang left the place after humiliating them. The next day, another boy entered the class with his group, looking for Victor. He started taunting Victor, saying, "You didn't show up when I called you yesterday." Victor calmly replied, "I don't have time to listen to your nonsense." Hearing that, the boy got furious, started cursing, and was about to hit him. Victor was also ready to fight back, but before he could, Mike stepped in between and reminded them, "The teacher already warned us. If anyone fights in school, they'll be expelled." But the other group had clearly come to fight. They grabbed whatever they could find in the classroom to use as weapons. Seeing that, both Victor and Jack got ready to defend themselves. Mike didn't fight, but he kept encouraging them while standing aside. Then, a fierce fight broke out between the two groups. Punches, kicks, and shouts echoed through the classroom. After that, Jack and his friends decided to form a proper group to protect weaker students from bullies. They wanted to stand up against all the injustice happening in the school. Jack and his friends talked about it together. But just then, Baldwin and his group showed up. Baldwin smirked and said, "What's this I hear? You think you're some kind of hero now?" He continued, "But remember, in this school the real hero is our boss Franklin, and if you try to mess with him, you won't survive." At that moment, Franklin himself appeared. He warned Jack, "Don't try to show off your strength in this school again. If you do, it won't end well for you." Franklin kept taunting Jack with arrogant remarks, trying to provoke him. Jack was burning with anger and was about to hit him, but his friends stopped him in time. Franklin just laughed in his strange, smug way, as if he already had some plan in mind. Later, when Jack and his friends were hanging out on the rooftop, he learned why Franklin had threatened him earlier. It turned out that Franklin was mad because, during a school event, he had been standing in the field while Jack was sleeping in class, and people had started joking about it. After hearing all this, Victor said to Jack, "You should just let it go. There's no need to take other people's problems on your shoulders. We came here to study. If we keep getting caught up in these fights, what will become of our future? Let things be as they are." But Jack was furious at that response. He said, "You told me you're a good fighter, right? So, are you going to stay silent when you see injustice? If you stay quiet, that means you're selfish." Victor got angry too and was about to hit Jack, but their friends quickly stopped them. That day, Jack was deeply upset. He went to a gaming center and started practicing boxing to vent his frustration. He punched so hard that his knuckles split and started bleeding. The next day, during lunch, Jack was napping in class when one of his friends rushed in and shouted, "Jack, wake up. Something's happened. Your father's been in an accident." Without wasting a second, Jack ran to the hospital. There, he saw that his father's condition was very serious. He was heartbroken. Jack stopped going to school for a few days and started working at his father's factory to help pay for his treatment. His job was to pick up and deliver fruits, a difficult task that made him realize how hard his father had always worked for their family. Even when he fell or got hurt, Jack kept working. For the first time, he truly understood the sacrifices his father had made. After work, he went to see his father, sat beside him, and apologized, promising that he would do something meaningful for their family. While he was working one day, Jack saw his friends coming toward him. They had been worried because he hadn't come to school, so they came to help him. Jack was touched by their kindness. He realized how beautiful true friendship really is. With their help, his work finished much faster, and afterward, they all celebrated together. From that day on, after school, his friends would come every evening to help him with his job. Life started to feel peaceful again, and Jack slowly began to forget his sadness because of his friends' support. One day, while Jack and his friends were chatting outside the classroom, Baldwin and his group suddenly showed up. Jack and his friends were just about to leave when Jack accidentally spilled his cup of tea on Baldwin. That gave Baldwin another excuse to start a fight. He angrily challenged Jack to a one-on-one match in the schoolyard. Soon, everyone gathered around the school field to watch. Franklin, the leader of the Zeus gang, was also there. Baldman tried to act tough, but deep down, he was scared of Jack. That's why he turned to Franklin and said, "Why don't you fight him yourself?" Victor was watching from a distance. He didn't want to get involved in yet another fight, but he couldn't stand the injustice happening again and again. He realized that if these fights kept going on, everyone's future would be ruined, and his friends' lives could also be in danger. So, Victor made a big decision. He decided he would fight one last time. He walked up to Franklin and said, "If you really want to fight, then fight against our gang. One final match. And if you lose, the Zeus gang has to disband forever." Franklin accepted the challenge. Both sides agreed on the time and place for the final fight, and the two teams began preparing for it. Back in the classroom, Jack and his friends were worried. The Zeus gang had a lot more members than they did, and their group only had 5 people. Could they really defeat them? Everyone was anxious, but Victor remained calm. He secretly invited some of his old gangster friends to join them. Within a short time, Victor had managed to gather a much larger team. Finally, the day of the big fight arrived. Both gangs showed up at the location. When Jack and his team got there, they realized that Franklin had played a dirty trick. He had joined forces with another school gang. Now their team had even more members than before, but Jack and his friends weren't afraid. They knew that if they stood together and fought with everything they had, they could win. This wasn't just an ordinary fight, it was a battle between right and wrong. The fight began, and everyone gave it their all. Punches, kicks, and chaos filled the air. Jack proved himself to be an incredible fighter, taking down several opponents on his own. Victor had also become a very skilled fighter by now. Their teamwork was perfect, and soon their group started gaining the upper hand. In the end, Victor's team, the Reunion Gang, won the fight. Franklin and his gang were furious, but they couldn't do anything because they had lost fair and square. After the fight, Victor said that he wanted to do something meaningful with his life, to take responsibility for his family and focus on his future. That was his big dream. He didn't want to get involved in any more fights from now on. They were all talking about this when suddenly their friend Emma came running in, panicked. She shouted, "Victor is in the hospital. His condition is really bad." She explained that someone had attacked him the previous night, hitting him hard on the head. Hearing this, Jack and all his friends rushed to the hospital. There, Victor's sister told them that he still hadn't regained consciousness, and the doctor couldn't say when he would wake up. Jack and his friends were devastated, especially Jack, who had always stood by Victor in every tough situation. Determined to find out the truth, Jack and his friends went straight to the police station to report the attack. But the police officer said, "This isn't anything new. These school kids fight all the time. Today, it's this one. Tomorrow, it'll be another. No need to take it so seriously." The officer told them to just focus on their studies instead. Hearing this, Jack and his friends were furious. Jack realized that the police weren't going to help. If he wanted justice for Victor, he'd have to do it himself. He went home feeling broken and lay down quietly. His father, who had now completely recovered, came in and asked him to eat dinner, but Jack couldn't eat a single bite. When his father asked what was wrong, Jack burst into tears. He was terrified that he might lose Victor forever. As he thought about it, anger and grief completely consumed him. Without saying anything, he left the house and began searching for Baldman, convinced that he and his group were responsible for the attack on Victor. After searching for a long time, Jack finally found him. His mind was full of rage and revenge. He shouted, "You attacked Victor last night, didn't you? I won't let you get away with it," and charged at him. Baldman immediately realized that Jack was dead serious. His eyes were burning with anger, and his expression was terrifying. He backed away and said, "I swear, I had nothing to do with that attack." But Jack didn't believe him. Though he was furious, he eventually controlled himself and decided to let him go, at least for the moment. Days went by, but Jack's behavior started to change drastically. Over the next few days, Jack's behavior changed so much that everyone noticed. One day, Mike called him to meet up. He tried to explain to Jack that he should stop getting involved in fights and arguments. He said, There's no need to find the people who attacked Victor. If you keep chasing revenge, you'll only put yourself in danger. But Jack got angry and said, I will find the people who attacked Victor, and I'll make them pay. If you don't want to stand by me, then leave. I'll handle this on my own. After saying this, Jack walked away, leaving Mike speechless. Mike realized that Jack was under a lot of pressure and emotional pain. A few days later, Jack managed to track down Victor, who had been expelled from school. Jack went to find him because he had discovered some important information. He had learned that once, the leader of the Zeus gang, Franklin, had made Victor an offer. If Victor could defeat Mike, he would be paid a huge amount of money. The money could help pay for his girlfriend's surgery. At that time, Victor accepted the deal and actually fought with Mike, but Mike was too strong and defeated him easily. Because of this, Jack started thinking that maybe Victor had something to do with the attack on Mike, that maybe he did it for money. At that moment, Franklin and his gang appeared. They started shouting that Victor had attacked Mike for money. Victor tried to defend himself and said, "That's not true." But Jack, blinded by anger, refused to listen. A fight broke out between the two of them. Franklin and his group stood around laughing and cheering as Jack and Victor fought fiercely. Both of them were great fighters. After all, Victor was the one who had originally trained Jack in combat. But now, Jack had become so powerful that after taking a few hard blows, Victor fell to the ground. Franklin's gang tried to take advantage of the situation and jumped in to attack Victor together. But just then, Jack roared in anger, and his shout drew the attention of his entire reunion gang, who rushed to the scene. Mike was there too, fully recovered now. Soon, Victor got back on his feet and joined Jack's side. Even Baldman and some of the other Zeus gang members switched sides and joined the reunion gang, realizing they had been on the wrong path. In fact, this entire plan had been secretly created by Jack and his friends to teach Franklin and his gang a lesson. Jack had pretended to fight Victor so that the Zeus gang wouldn't get the chance to expand their power. Their plan worked perfectly. Together, they fought and defeated Franklin's gang once and for all. After this, Franklin realized that ever since Jack had arrived at the school, everything had changed. His power, his fear, and his control were all slipping away. He stood before everyone and said, "If Jack defeats me in a fight, I'll disband the Zeus gang forever." Jack stepped forward to face him. The fight began, but it didn't last long. Jack overpowered Franklin in the very first attack. Franklin and his gang had no choice but to accept defeat. The reunion gang had won again. Ashamed and humiliated, Franklin never came back to school after that. The school was finally free from all gangs. Peace returned. Now, Jack and all his friends, Victor, Mike, Emma, and the others, were seen laughing, celebrating, and enjoying their time together, finally living a normal, happy life.